The detailed learning objectives of this chapter are that the learner will be able to describe the impact of oil on the marine environment, to describe 2 ecological impacts of oil on the marine environment, to describe 1 economic impact of oil on the marine environment, to recognize the relative contribution of shipping to the discharge of oil into the sea, to describe the relative contribution of accidents and operational discharges of oil from ships, to describe their responsibilities with regards to oily waste, to describe 2 onboard procedures to prevent oil pollution, to describe their responsibilities for the handling of oily waste. What went wrong? The bunker hose was not properly connected, which resulted in oil spilling into the sea via a loose flange. Corrective action. A proper risk assessment should have been made before starting the bunkering operation. The procedures should have included tightening of all bolts around the flange and an inspection of the hose. Crude oil is a natural product formed millions of years ago when dead plants and animals, plankton, sank to the sea floor. Massive pressures and heat turned the organisms into oil. It is a complicated mixture of hydrocarbons, and it also contains heavy metals and hundreds of chemicals. Crude oil is the basis for many oil products, from LPG to bunker fuel, and from kerosene to diesel. Oil products are very different from each other. Some are light, like propane. Others are more complex and heavy, like bunker fuel. Oil, when spilled at sea, will normally break up into different components and spread in the marine environment over time. Oil products behave in different ways when spilled at sea. Light products tend to evaporate and disappear quickly. These are called non-persistent oils. They rarely need cleanup. Non-persistent oils include gasoline, light diesel oil, and kerosene. In contrast, heavy oils break up more slowly, are more persistent, and usually require a cleanup response. Persistent oils include crude oils, fuel oils, heavy diesel, and lubricating oils. Oil in the sea is perceived as a major environmental problem. Shipping accidents with oil tankers get a lot of public attention. But oil also enters the sea during normal shipping operations, when small amounts of oil are discharged day after day. In fact, 3 times as much oil is released into the oceans this way than from accidental spills. Oil can kill marine organisms and disrupt ecosystems. Oil pollution can also cause economic losses, for instance by affecting fisheries. The exact impact from an oil spill depends on several factors. More oil obviously means a bigger problem, but the type of oil, the location, and the time of year when the oil is spilled are also very important. It is often said that the effects of oil discharges at sea depend more on the site of the discharge, where, than on the size of the discharge, how much. Discharges in coastal areas have more negative effects than discharges in the open ocean, because coastal areas harbour more life. Shorelines are very exposed to the effects of oil, as this is where oil naturally tends to accumulate. Salt marshes and mangrove forest are especially sensitive to oiling. Rocky shores are generally less vulnerable than coasts with soft sediment, because oil is not absorbed by rocks. One of the most well-known effects of oil in the marine environment is the death of seabirds. Oil on the feathers of a seabird can destroy the waterproofing and insulating characteristics of the feathers, causing birds to drown or die from the cold. Especially in cold areas, an oil stain of 2 to 3 centimeters on a bird's chest is enough to kill it. But oil has other impacts as well. Laboratory studies have demonstrated that oil has toxic effects on zooplankton and zooplankton are an important link in the food chain. Also, shellfish, like mussels, filter seawater and ingest oily components. This gives them an oily taste, which is bad news for mussel farmers. Oil spills can also cause economic losses. Contamination of coastal areas leads to problems with recreational activities, such as bathing, boating, angling and diving. Clean-up actions can cause local communities a lot of money. Oil spills can lead to economic loss for fishermen and aquaculture. Fishing grounds or gear can be damaged by oil. Sales of seafood might dwindle because people don't trust fish from the affected area. Correct action. Oil and the environment. The role of shipping. Oil is important in our modern society. In the year 2000, the world oil production was 11 million tons per day. A lot of this oil is transported by ships. Oil may enter the marine environment during production, transport or use. Oil enters the ocean from a variety of sources. Accidental spills from ships and offshore platforms are a visible cause of oil pollution of the marine environment. However, natural sources and land-based sources also account for a large part of the input of oil in the marine environment. Oil pollution from ships was an important reason for the adoption of the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, MARPOL 73/78, in 1973. MARPOL 73/78 came into effect in 1978. Oil pollution from ships probably reached its peak in 1979 and has been declining since then. Even though more and more oil is transported by ships, the number of accidental spills from tankers and other ships has clearly decreased since 1990. In 2002, shipping accidents were estimated to be responsible for 8% of the oil entering the sea. Operational discharges were responsible for about 24% of the oil entering the sea. Two things are important to remember. 1. Since 1979, the amount of oil entering the sea as a result of shipping operations has gone down dramatically due to safer shipping operations, design improvements and regulations. 2. While accidents get all the attention, routine shipping operations contribute 3 times as much to the input of oil to the environment as accidental pollution. You can personally make a difference. Make sure your oily waste does not end up in the ocean. During bunker operations, plug deck scuppers, manifold and fuel tank vent containment trays, place drip trays, seal bunker tank covers, check moorings of the bunker barge, and properly rig, fully bolt and secure transfer hoses to manifolds on ship and barge. Put your oily rags and waste in the ship's incinerator or in a garbage container. Do not wash oily water overboard.